Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Finance with Anthony. Today, we're going to be looking at a few personal finance questions more related around credit and a little bit about, what should you do with your retirement funds again. Any drawbacks to using credit card for all purchases if I pay it off in full every month? My bank gives pretty good credit rewards for using my card and paying in full every month. Last year, I got around $600 in free money doing this. What I am wondering is if there are any possible drawbacks to my credit score or something else I'm not realizing. I basically use my bank issued credit card as my debit card and never purchase anything I can't afford with it or would not be comfortable to purchase as debit. I always pay it off in full every month. I only do this with my bank credit card, not any third-party cards. So the first thing I want to say is that's great. Kudos to you for paying off the card, every month. There's a lot of people out there who usually keep a balance on the card, and that's probably the worst thing you can do, especially with how high, interests are. Interest for most credit cards is around 24 to 25%, sometimes 28%, depending on the card. So it's important to usually pay these off in full every month, unless you want to incur a lot of interest on these balances. So yeah, that's the first thing. The second thing is, the great thing about credit cards is that it's kind of like having, access to money that you normally wouldn't have until a later point down the month. So maybe you get paid like every 2 weeks or every month. It's a great way to actually alleviate a little bit of the financial burden of having the cash on hand. Now, with this comes risk, where if you are someone who likes to spend on frivolous purchases, then having a credit card may actually lead you to spend more than you were expected. But as long as you're only using your credit card for things like maybe your utility bills, maybe things that you normally do need to pay, like maybe like your phone bill, maybe like your food that you normally do buy, like let's say at the supermarket, things like that, that's perfectly fine. It becomes a trouble when you start, spending on, things like diamond watches or things like of those natures, which once in a while it's fine to do, but I'm just saying like it shouldn't be something that you take a habit of. The final thing is about credit cards, which I enjoy a lot, is that credit cards usually have a protection. So usually if you spend with a credit card, there's a protection on it on purchases. So if, God forbid, someone, finds your credit card and starts spending with it, usually it's a little bit easier to reverse those transactions versus with a debit card. The other thing is, like, if you accidentally, make a purchase that you didn't mean to make, then you can also dispute that as well and usually get a full credit for that. So credit cards tend to have an advantage like that too, versus a debit card, which can be a long drawn out process to actually get your money back. So, definitely, I recommend credit cards as well to anyone, especially, considering they also give rewards as mentioned here. The next question is closing a credit card. I've had my credit card for a little over 1.5 years. Although I've never missed a payment and I always pay it in full every month, I feel like I'm not responsible enough to have one. When I got my first job at 16, I would blow through my paychecks. Now I'm better at saving and investing, but I still find myself impulsively spending on my CC. I recently bought a pair of jeans for $148, and the assignment has worn off, and I just regret it. How do I be more mindful when spending? Should I just stop using the card altogether? So this is a great question. So the first thing is never close down a credit card. I almost made this mistake myself once. And basically, the reason that you shouldn't close down a credit card is because it actually impacts your score negatively. And the reason for that is because your credit score is based on the amount of credit you have on hand. So essentially, the more credit cards you have, the more credit you have. And usually having more credit is better because there's something called utilization. So the more credit you have that you can utilize, that makes it better for you. So I'll give you an easy example. Let's say if you have the ability to utilize $100,000 of credit and you spend $2,000, you're only using 2% of your credit. However, if you only have $3,000 of credit cards in terms of credit and you spend $2,000, that's a 67% utilization, which will negatively impact your credit. That's something you don't want to do. You don't want to have like a low credit amount of credit that you can use, because that would effectively increase your utilization, the amount of credit that you're using. So the more credit you have, the better. Now, of course, this comes with the risk of, having the ability to have more credit means you have the ability, of course, to spend more, which you don't want to. You don't want to do that. You definitely want to keep your utilization low. So, sorry, give you another car pass. So what I would recommend more than anything is that if you feel like you're someone who, can't use, wants to limit how much credit you use, there is actually a way to lock your card where you only can use a certain amount of credit at a time within a month. So once you reach that limit, then usually you won't be able to spend anymore. So if you want to start setting maybe limits on your card, you can do that. That is something that I've heard that you can do on cards. So definitely, take advantage of that, especially if it will help you control your spending habits. So yeah, hopefully this helped, and yeah, let's move on to the next question. Hello everyone, my name is Anthony and I'm the host of TheLostSanctuary. I hope you've been enjoying our content so far, and if you have, please feel free to like and subscribe. Also, we have our website up here, and we also have some socials down here, and as always, leave your comments down below. Should I pause my 401 contribution to pay off CC debt? Yeah, hey everyone, I'm 25 years old and make about $48,000 a year. I racked up $6,500 of credit card debt over the course of about 4 years, and finally started to take action about 10 months ago. I started really budgeting, got rid of unnecessary subscriptions, stopped eating out entirely, and controlled impulse spending. I froze, then hid all of my credit cards and removed them from any online accounts when I first started, and I'm pleased to say that I haven't touched them or even thought about them since. At the rate I've been going, I have 10 more months before all of my credit card debt is paid off. Before touching my retirement, I wanted to be sure that I had the spending habits in check, so I didn't see it as extra money that I can just blow on stuff I don't need. I'm very confident in saying that I'm actually hooked on being frugal now. Right now, I contribute 8% post-tax to my 401k through work, which is about $200 a month. In my situation, this would cut down the remaining time by a few months, and I would then be able to bump my contribution up at least 10%. I will likely go higher depending on my new budget being debt-free. My job doesn't do a match, but instead they contribute 4% regardless of if I invest or not. So isn't a match for me to take at a minimum, which is the general advice. Should I eventually stop contributions until I get that last of my debt paid off, or is the 10 months short enough to not worry about it? So I would say, this is a very tricky situation. I would say credit card debt will usually be higher, especially for roughly a year that you're going to be taking to pay off the debt, than the amount of gains you'll be getting in most cases. Usually on average, gains, and let's say in the 401k, which is most likely tied to like the stock market, on average is around 7 or 8%, sometimes 10%, 12%. But in a lot of cases, credit cards tend to be 24 to 25%. So, just looking at it that way, I would say, usually you want to pay off high interest debt first before you start investing in anything. So I would say definitely pay off all of pay off all those credit cards first. And then once you actually paid off your credit cards, not only will you be able to invest more into your 401k, but you also have the peace of mind. Peace of mind is something that not a lot of people really understand is so important to an investor, because peace of mind, being debt-free, is like lifting a veil from your head, where it's like, wow, I'm finally debt-free and I don't have to deal with this debt anymore. And I think that's even sometimes even more important than having a few extra dollars in your retirement account, at least for a year. After that, you'll be free. You'll be able to actually potentially even start using your credit cards again, but also be a lot more careful of how you spend. 30K bonus. How would you invest it for your child? 30K before taxes. Kiddo is 3 years old. Long-term investment. I don't want to have to fiddle with it too much. Looking for max compound interest and appreciation. The whole lump sum. What will you do? So there's something actually called the 529 college plan, which is really great for you to use for your child. So the way the 529 plan works is you put the money into this plan, and then you actually invest the money in that account. So essentially you can invest in different kinds of investments like stocks, bonds, things like that. And then as the college fund or the 529 plan appreciates in value, you're going to be actually trending it through, let's say your kid is 3 now. So usually, hopefully by 18, they'll need the college fund there. So you have 15 years of appreciation in the account. And usually if we're looking at things, hopefully holistically, 8 to 12% of increase every year on average. So that's 15 years of appreciation. So you should have a pretty sizable, college fund for your kid at that point. And the great thing is, if your child decides not to go into college, you can actually take that money out and then use it for other things, and you won't be penalized for that kind of thing. So it's a great way to invest into your child's future. Whether or not they decide to go to college is completely up to them, but at least you'll have the money there for if they do decide to go there. Especially with college costs going up, you definitely need that. You definitely need to start investing, your college fund versus saving it like people used to do. All right, moving on to the next question. How much money do you spend annually on unforeseen circumstances? I feel like I'm going crazy with constant surprise expenses. I am married with 2 young kids, a dog, and a house, and it feels like every month there is another accident,
injury, mistake, breakdown, etc. I'm feeling very frustrated with the amount of money that we spend annually on unforeseen circumstances. Here are just a few examples from the past year or so. Dog ran into neighbor's yard and got bit by another dog, $900 vet bill. Son fell and broke his leg, $1,000 medical bill. Wife sideswiped a concrete pole at a gas station, $3,000 for auto body work. Car key literally disappeared from keychain, $400 to replace and program a new key. We did not add a dime to our emergency savings in 2024 because of these things, plus a ton of smaller surprise expenses. Are constant unforeseen expenses just the reality of family life and homeownership?
So this is a great question. So the first thing I will address is that this is the why having an emergency fund is so important. You know, having 3 to 6 months of your expenses saved, you need this. Like, this is the utmost importance because of things like this. The next thing is, yes, I agree. You know, having kids, having a family, having a dog, you know, having a car, having a house, all of these things have variable components to them. A house, for example, usually requires maintenance, but something always breaks down. A car is the same thing. Even though you might not get into an accident, God forbid, there's still things that break down, you'll have to fix, there's maintenance, there's so many variable components to that. And then kids, of course, and dogs, you know, sometimes they don't know any better and they get into trouble and you'll have unexpected expenditures. It just happens, you know, it's just the way of life and, you know, just the price of having, you know, our little bundles of joy, as we call them. So, you know, that's another thing. So, you know, life brings a lot of unexpected surprises out there. And the worst thing you want to have is not just like the fact that things like this can happen, but also the fact is that, you know, God forbid you could lose your job. So, you know, not on top of like you not having, you know, having these variable expenses, God forbid if you don't have your job, you know, you won't be able to do anything. So definitely I would recommend, you know, an emergency fund, 3 to 6 months. Some people are even more conservative now, having 12 months of savings, but 3 to 6 is usually like the average. So yeah, so that will conclude Finance with Anthony, episode 5. I hope everyone out there has a blessed day and adios. Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing an amazing job, and I'm wishing everyone out there all the best. All right, until next time, adios.